So kinesiophobia can kind of come up in two forms. So you can perceive it. It can be something of like, oh, I'm afraid to make this cut as a soccer player because my knee feels weak and I think it's going to give out. So I'm not going to make that motion. I'm not going to make it as hard as I used to. And then there's the kind of like subliminal, what's the word? Subliminal type that you don't really think that you have any problems, but like it's kind of just there. That you don't perceive it to be a problem, but yeah.
Podcasting from somewhere with protein shakes and no yearly membership fees. This is the HeroFit Podcast, the show that talks about the ins and outs of fitness, nutrition, and anything else that might get you feeling like a hero. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome your hosts, Nick Stutzman and Dan Weber.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to the HeroFit Podcast. I am Nick Stutzman alongside my co-host Dan Weber. Today we're interviewing Josh Allen, future physical therapist studying at the prestigious Duke University. We're going to talk to him about what he's been learning, PTA time in Nashville, his belief in the biggest factor in training, coming back from injuries, is maintaining the proper mindset, and more, plus what his future plans for PTR. Josh, welcome to the show.
Hey, how's it going?
Pretty good, buddy. Pretty good. You know, I think it's kind of cool that you get to go to Duke.
It's a dream come true, really.
I do not.
He's a North Carolina guy. Well, you know, we know what the real team is.
Oh, yes, I know that.
So tell us a little bit about, your humble beginnings before you got to Duke.
Well, I was originally a Western New Yorker, grew up in south of Rochester, and I went to High Point University, which is down near Greensboro in High Point, North Carolina. Just graduated this spring with my degree in exercise science, and will be going this fall to Duke University for my doctorate degree in physical therapy.
And what kind of got you into thinking that, I need to be a physical therapist?
So I was always an athlete. I played football, I played baseball, played a little bit of basketball in high school, and I knew I wanted to go into a medical field, but I kind of didn't know where I wanted to go. And so PT is really that meeting point of wellness and athletics and still being able to practice medicine.
Obviously being an athlete and stuff like that, did you sustain any injuries or anything like that kind of, like, that's actually kind of been a little bit of I think a common occurrence for a lot of the people we've seen getting into PT was that I don't remember you ever suffering any big injuries, but, being injured and then being like, oh, that's what physical therapy is all about.
So you're right. I never sustained any big major injuries, but I had some low back issues. I had some hamstring issues, and I went to PT and I just saw what they were doing. And I was like, man, that's just something really cool that is still applicable to something I love and something that I feel like I can strive to do.
And at the same time, you got these, for High Point University, I don't think of it as necessarily physical therapy, but, kind of getting out there, getting your feet wet and learning different things in the field. What were some of your takeaways once you got into it?
The biggest takeaway that I got coming into it was that it's so much more people-centered than I thought of, because usually when you think of medicine, you think of seeing this one person once or twice a month, maybe more, and nothing else. PT is really an intimate practice. You're seeing these people once, twice, maybe even 3 times a week for sometimes up to months, and you really kind of develop this kind of relationship. So to be a really effective physical therapist, you really have to have that ability to relate to people, or it's kind of a miserable thing.
Because of being injured?
Oh no, just as far as like being a practitioner, not being a people person, and not that it's a very people centered. Whereas a regular doctor might see one patient 3 or 4 times and that's it. Whereas a PT sees the same person 3 times a week for say 2 months. So they really have to have that kind of ability to connect to people, to be a really effective physical therapist, to kind of get somebody to buy into what you're saying, you really have to be able to connect with them on a personal level.
So, regarding those soft skills, is there any part of your education that focuses on that?
So a lot of what got me into Duke, into PT school, is you're supposed to go out into the field and go on rotations, be in the clinic, and kind of work on that. And I kind of did an internship down in Nashville last summer, which I really kind of honed in on those soft skills, that kind of was out there working with patients, out there kind of meeting people, learning stories, and kind of honing in those soft skills, you said.
And what were some of the cases or some of the patients that you kind of came across when you were doing that?
It's really a weird thing, especially in an outpatient environment where somebody who just has a normal injury would go, is that you run into just the gamut of just different people. You can be working with a 50, 60-year-old patient who's trying to get back out and play tennis or golf. And then the next patient be working with a 7 or 8-year-old that wants to go back to dance class, or an athlete that's trying to get back on the football field. It's really wide ranging, the kind of patients you see.
Gotcha. And for example, I mean, what were some of the things that you worked on yourself there?
So I was an intern, but I did a lot of roles that a PTA would do. So the physical therapist would assign the exercises that the patient was supposed to do in the clinic. And then I would go and kind of watch them, make sure they had the proper technique, and while at the same time keeping them motivated and focused.
What were some of the workouts, for example, that you were helping with?
So again, it was very wide ranging. I could be working on shoulder workouts, shoulder exercises to help a patient come back from a shoulder rotator cuff surgery. I could be working on fine motor skills of somebody who had an ankle surgery. Working on it really was wide ranging. It varied a lot depending on what the injury was.
Do you think that I mean, did you see any or notice any differences? I mean, I know it was probably a shorter amount of time that you were there, but did you see any improvements or get any good feedback?
Oh, absolutely. It's a really weird thing because the first patient I saw there was the last patient I saw there a month and a half, 2 months there. And it was crazy to see the improvement over 2 months. And that's really something that it's very gratifying as a PT to be able to say, I was there day one when you could barely lift up your shoulder, and now month and a half later you're able to do arm circles and pick stuff up over your head. It's really gratifying. It's really, really what drove me to become a PT.
And what were I guess, I mean, were you allowed to help create the different types of workouts, or was that kind of something that you were just administering?
It was more of something that I was administrating, but as I was there for a longer period of time, I was able to see kind of who the patients were coming in. They kind of tell me a little bit about them, and from there I can kind of deduce, all right, so they're probably gonna diagnose A, B, and C, and have 1, 2, and 3 exercises to help correct this problem.
Gotcha. And is that, I mean, with being in the undergrad, was that, do you feel like you learned more being hands-on, or do you feel like you were still getting more from the classes that you were taking at High Point?
Oh, absolutely. The hands-on stuff was the most beneficial for me. And then anybody who's really wanting to get into physical therapy or any field really, kind of going out and getting your hands dirty, being able to kind of see what a day in the life is really, really beneficial. And it really helps solidify what you learned in the classroom, learn from whoever that, okay, this stuff matters. This is the stuff that you're going to be using on a daily basis for the rest of your career.
Gotcha. So what do you feel are some of the up and coming things that you see in physical therapy? So if someone gets injured, at the gym, say or as an athlete or whatever the case may be, what are some of the things that you see up and coming and down the line as as for you as an upcoming physical therapist that is going to kind of change the game?
So one of the biggest things, this is one of my final projects is on the mental side of recovery, in as much that people usually associate injury with whatever you injured, but there's a whole mental side of the recovery that can have a huge effect on return to play, how an athlete plays once they're back. It's really a huge thing.
Yeah, tell us more.
So it's the biggest thing is called kinesiophobia, which is the fear of movement, and usually it happens after a catastrophic injury, say torn ACL, a broken leg, broken arm, rotator cuff injury. That through the injury you may be fully recovered, but you don't have full range of motion because there's this innate fear that you're going to re-injure it. Sometimes it's something you notice, sometimes it's something that you don't even perceive is there, but it has huge impact on return to play. Some athletes come back and they're not as effective. You can see that all the time in major sports of people who get injured and sometimes aren't able to return even though they're fully healthy. And then some people are even aware of it. But it's one of those things is more and more clinicians are going to have to pay attention to the mental state more than, not more than, but equal to the actual physical injury and ensure that they're progressing along with their physical recovery.
I think I may have experienced that in the past. I can think about having I had a really, really bad foot ankle injury and was told that essentially like physically it looked like it was all right, but I wasn't able to perform, put weight on it, walk the way I wanted to, etc. And it was very frustrating. So, perhaps, that was what my issue was. And I'm curious to think about like what are some things you can do to improve the mental state of somebody. Like, is it about just trust? Is it just convincing them that they're okay? Or are there actual like techniques that can be employed?
So it's more of a trust factor. And again, coming back to what I said earlier about having that personal connection, you kind of have to have your patient buy into whatever program you try and prescribe for them. That sometimes you need to slow down and ensure that they're comfortable with where they're at. Because, I mean, there's a competitive spirit in any athlete, professional, semi-pro, your weekend warrior, to go out and be the best that they can be. And sometimes that can kind of backfire in a way because you're trying to go too fast and maybe you don't perceive that like you need to slow down and kind of acclimate yourself to where you're at, because when you're coming back from injury you're not at the performance level that you are at in the sedentary time and the time of recovery. You're lost strength and power and endurance that kind of prevents you from reaching that peak level that you are at. So kind of taking and slowing down and kind of taking your time in recovering can make the world of difference. Is getting back your proper technique, making sure that you kind of don't have that kinesiophobia or that fear of movement can make a huge difference in return to play.
So with this kinesiophobia, break that down a little bit more. I mean, I feel like it's pretty ideal as far as like, all right, I'm scared to play or I'm scared of this, but like, how does that affect one's, like, does it affect the injuries that like almost like haunts you in a sense, or does it like just kind of like, I guess it more of like a mental state? I don't know. Break it down more.
So kinesiophobia can kind of come up in two forms. So you can perceive it. It can be something of like, oh, I'm afraid to make this cut as a soccer player because my knee feels weak and I think it's going to give out. So I'm not going to make that motion. I'm not going to make it as hard as I used to. And then there's the kind of like subliminal, what's the word? Subliminal type that you don't really think that you have any problems, but like it's kind of just there. That you don't perceive it to be a problem, but yeah.
Is it almost like, I mean, this might not be the best comparison, but almost like PTSD, where you like are having like an emotional reaction and you're not, because of a situation, like you're reminded of a situation, or your body is stuck in a memory in a sense.
Yeah, very similar.
But you're not necessarily like consciously like making it happen yourself.
Right, exactly. You could be totally gung ho on trying to make this cut, but there could be just some subliminal thing saying, no, I can't do this. And it affects you. And
Yeah.
that's where you
It's
brought up
like a memory, like the body knows, like, well, last time we did this, it was not good for us. So
exactly.
okay, interesting. Does it and how if maybe it doesn't at all? Does this tie in at all to like? I would assume that let's say after an injury, long recovery time, than a surgery, some of the muscles are just dormant, and the mind muscle connection might be gone.
Oh,
Is
yeah.
that a separate issue or related or what?
Yes and no. Muscle memory is its own can of worms in and of itself. And as I said earlier, that coming back from a long recovery, say from like a torn ACL, there's a lot of, in addition to recovering from the actual surgery, you need to build up those muscles that you said like were dormant that haven't been used in a while. So working not only to recover, but also to kind of build up that strength, endurance, and power to get back to that peak level.
So when in the process do you address this? So like, I mean, obviously if we're having an ACL surgery and because that's one of the more common injuries nowadays, one that's really debilitating anyways. And I'm coming back from an ACL tear and I'm, like you said, I'm worried about cutting, say football or soccer. When do we address the mental aspect? Is that right from the beginning, or is that something that you're kind of addressing after the surgery's got time to heal, and they've given it some time to really kind of see where they're at?
At this point, the jury's still out on when to actually start addressing it. This is kind of the wild west of recovery that we really don't know all that we need to know to kind of make a final judgment. But in my mind, from what I've researched and what I've seen, it's something that should be addressed throughout, starting at the beginning, and mainly because, as we talked about earlier, those muscle motor patterns, that mental linkage that you can get through and start building these incorrect motor patterns because you don't even know that you have this kinesiophobia, that you don't know that you don't want to make this motion. And by the time that you get to the point of realizing, oh shoot, I've been doing this wrong, and you and your clinician realize it might be too late. It might take you having to break down and relearn stuff and just prolong your recovery.
So
like if you have new compensation patterns.
Right, exactly.
And that kind of brings, I think there's two parts to this, but the first part is kind of like, so then how do you like diagnose it?
So I guess it's one of those things is you kind of have to you have to kind of go at it with the mindset in diagnosis of, all right, I think it might be something that's mental, and kind of try and address it in tandem with their physical recovery.
Do you tell them that though? Do you tell them, hey, it's mental?
You could. I mean, I personally, if I were me, I probably would say, hey, I wouldn't. I'd say, oh, it's just in your head, because that kind of sends off all the wrong signals. But
Right.
kind of address it and say, hey, I'd kind of go at it as, hey, are you feeling this? Are you afraid to do this? Is this causing you trouble? And then kind of going at it of, well, all right, this is how we would address the problem.
So it can be kind of touchy. I mean, or in the sense of like, it's not exactly easy to explain to a patient and be like, hey, man, it's all in your head, but you got to just shake this off.
Oh, yeah. I mean, mental stuff in sports has kind of always been kind of a taboo thing. Getting the yips, kind of stuff being in your head, kind of being something that's bad, but it affects us all. So it's something that, as we've kind of gone on with our research, have discovered that it actually is something that's causing issues in athletes trying to return to play for major injury.
And conversely, or maybe even similarly, if they have now had multiple injuries of the same, say, once again, the ACL, they tear it more than once. Now what you might have even started with the kinesiophobia is now even worse.
Right, exactly. So, and you see that all the time in athletes when they were young, who were studs, who were on top of the world, and they get injured once, twice, maybe three times, and they're never the same, even though they're healthy.
And so how do you kind of combat that?
So again, it's a really difficult thing and a can of worms that we really kind of haven't found an answer to yet. It's a very very new and up and coming field in exercise science and biomechanics of addressing how do we tackle this mental state, and we really don't have an answer yet. We all make assumptions, but nobody's come up with a direct recipe for success, as it were.
And do you think it's because now that this is becoming more of a problem because, the medicine that we have now and the technology to bring people back from injuries is so advanced that, if an athlete or whoever the case may be, is coming back from an injury and they're going to the physical therapist, and now this is becoming more rampant than necessarily the actual recovery process from the surgeries or whatever.
Yeah, I think it's definitely something as we go along that's got to be addressed. But that's, and as I've said, it's coming on. It's an up and coming field, so I definitely think that we're going to get answers sooner rather than later on what to do as far as addressing that mental state. But at this point, just kind of being aware that hey, the mental state is just as important as the physical state, and then kind of addressing it in that way is really important. I think that comes back to having that personal relationship with your practical or with your PT is really really important, because if you aren't transparent with them as far as what's going on, they can't help you, and that's something that happens more often than not in sports. Of oh, I'm not going to tell my physician this, that, or the other thing because they're going to take me out, or they're going to do this, they're going to do something to prevent me from playing, and that's causes more harm than good. I mean, that's what leads to these bad movement patterns, which open up more injuries and leads to that mental state of oh, I can't talk about my injury because what if they take me out, and it kind of snowballs like that.
And do you feel like this is going to be something that athletes need to be aware of too?
I think it definitely needs to be something that is made aware to our athlete, that look at like it's okay for you to be transparent, to let your athletic trainer, your PT know what's going on, because they can't help you if you don't tell them. And usually, in more cases than not, what happens is that somebody comes in with a major injury and like, oh, my knee was hurting before the game, but I just couldn't sit out, and now they're out for the entire season when something could have been done to prevent that injury.
Well, what about, so like, say your average gym goer, what about them? I mean, obviously, sometimes they might think of it as like a DOMS, like, the
Right.
delayed onset muscle soreness or something like that. And they're like, oh, it's just always the shoulder, or it's just always, this knee or whatever. How do you explain to them, or how do we explain to them as people who are educated in this field, you know, go to a physical therapist, or at least maybe get yourself checked out instead of trying to keep going back to the well and possibly injuring yourself further?
I guess it's one of those things. Is first and foremost for those people, those weekend warriors, or those people who are just getting into fitness, go with a trainer, go with somebody who knows what they're doing, go with a buddy who's been working out, and maybe learn from them what, okay, so this is what Downs feels like, this is what it's supposed to feel like, this is what it's not supposed to feel like. And then that's something that happens too, is people get into the fitness craze and they just jump in head first when they really need to be taking it slower, and it kind of opens them up to that DOMS and opens them up to even more injuries.
And then I guess too, like thinking about it, if they are injured, should they go see a doctor first and then get to a physical therapist, or should they try to reach out to a physical therapist?
The usual process is go to your primary care and then they will prescribe you physical therapy. That's usually how it goes.
And so as you, I guess, kind of getting back to the what you're talking about with the mental mind state, do you feel like that's going to be something that you're going to be studying more now, or is that something as a physical, like, an up and coming physical therapist, getting your doctorate, is that going to be more of like the requirements, or do you think it's still more about the actual physical body, bringing them back from recovery?
Oh, I think the actual physical side of things is going to be first and foremost. I think it always will. But I think just having the reminder at some stage of the process of like, hey, it's not always about the physical, or it's not 100% physical. Sometimes it's a mental state thing as well, is something that's really important, that should be something that is covered at some stage of somebody's education as they get into exercise science, kinesiology, physical therapy, athletic training, something like that.
Yeah, I think it's important to bring that back into the fold. I know Nick had just mentioned that science has made advancements, let's say, in the material realm. From a materialistic aspect, meaning like working with the body, understanding like the matter, how the joints operate, how to like surgically intervene, perhaps medicines or hormones or whatever it may be. From a physical standpoint, medicine has made a lot of advancements, but yeah, I've I'm only I've only been on this planet for so long, but it seems as if we've almost regressed in the sense of losing focus of that mindset, whether it's your mental state, your emotional health, or your spiritual and state and health. But trying to reintegrate that into people's lives and keeping that back in the focus, I think would be good. And then you pair the two together. I suspect that there's probably some ancient wisdom out there that'll end up ringing true once we figure this thing out. Now that we're studying the mental state from a scientific standpoint.
Oh, absolutely. It's one of those things, is that we're in a society of bigger, faster, stronger, as fast as possible. And people get caught up in that flashy, like, I got to get there now. I got to get there as soon as possible. And really, it's about slow and steady. And I think that's something that regular general population may not understand, is that getting to a physical state of competitive state, or getting to a high level, is something that's not made overnight. It's something that takes months and months of training and practice, combining the fitness with nutrition, and also having that mind state. Because and we see this every year, January 1st, gyms fill up with people who are going to make a new them. And within 2 to 6 months, I think the number is 50, 65% of those people drop out. Why? Because they don't have the right mental state. They get into it and they just are like, no, this isn't for me. And they stop.
Yeah, or they burn out. I think it's important that you just pointed out that you have to have the right mental state so that you can stick to it and stay disciplined and not expect instant results.
Exactly.
And
We're in a world where I want it now, and I want it right here, right now, right brought
yeah,
to my living room.
and also just to be able to slow down and understand that it's going to be a process.
Exactly.
So you don't so you don't kill yourself. Because I have seen people that they'll start out trying to go a million miles an hour, and they've never like done anything before, so they're completely deconditioned, and then they're like, this is terrible, this is awful, why would I do this, and give up. And so that's part of it's mental toughness, part of it's ignorance, part of it is just like you said, the this instant gratification need. There's so much that ties into it. I'm trying to figure out even where to start here, but it's important that these discussions are had and that people start thinking about these things again.
Exactly, and that's why, as I said earlier, talk to an exercise person, talk to somebody who's been working out for a while, learn more about it. And I feel, and that's another thing. It's just being educated about what you need to do to get in there, to get where you want to be, having goals set, having an idea of, okay, this is what I need to do with my diet, with my exercise, to get where I want to go.
Well, do you feel like there's a lot of opportunity there? I mean, I get, or not even necessarily opportunity, but it's tough, I think, in this day and age. We've talked about this kind of on the podcast before with other guests, but there's these fakers, there's these people who just happen to look really good, but don't necessarily there was genetics. It wasn't like they worked really hard to get that far. So, where is it there that we can, start and people can find better ways of getting educated first before they go and just run rampant to the gym?
No, I agree with you 100%. It's though we're all about that kind of visual stuff, and everyone's been tricked or seduced by seeing those big people at the gym and thinking they know everything and can teach you everything. And you're right, it can be about genetics. So it's really just kind of understanding, okay, where do I go to find this information? And the answer is it's it can be there's a lot of places on the internet. For one, if you know where to go, there are websites out there that have proper plans. Definitely with all of the gyms coming up about Planet Fitness and all of that, there are trainers out there who have certification and degrees in physical training and education that can help you get to where you need to go. And then coming back to the idea of just talk to your friends. I mean, you know people better than anybody. If you know somebody who goes to the gym a lot, who knows what they're doing, talk to them. Say, hey, I'm trying to get into fitness. I want to get fit. I want to try and learn more. It's just tag along to the gym.
You're right. And I guess too, conversely with that too, is that, don't be afraid to get out of your comfort zone again and try to talk to people and.
And I would also say, along the same lines of what you just said, Nick, like, be confident in yourself. Like, I think sometimes some people just need that. Like, trust your intuition. You can test, explore the world of fitness and nutrition and find what works for you. And then if you find something that resonates, you find something that's working, it's helping you get towards your goal. You're listening to your own body and listening to your own feedback, because your body will give you feedback if you listen to it. And then at that point, if it's, like I said, if you found something that's working, you don't have to listen to the naysayers. You don't have to listen to the keyboard warriors criticizing it, because you're going to find that everybody has an opinion, and that like you can find evidence for one diet or one exercise program working, and evidence that it doesn't work too. And a lot of times at the end of the day, it comes down to the individual. It comes down to that mindset. It comes down to trusting, staying disciplined, being able to stay consistent, and then you're going to yield the results.
Yeah, and that's the biggest pitfall that people fall into, is thinking that there's a one size fit all system that
I have to do it this way because that's how this person did it.
Exactly. So it's understanding that, what worked for person A may not work for me, and having the confidence and having the wherewithal to say, you know what, this isn't working for me. So let's slow down and find something that will work for me. That it's never a one size fit all system, that everybody have their own personalized plan going into doing what they're doing, because every person is different. There's no carbon copies on Earth. Everybody has a different metabolism, has a different injury history. One thing that works for somebody, as you said, may not work at all for another person.
And so just kind of, sometimes in a sense, you need to block out the noise, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Listen to people, gather as much as you can from trusted sources, people that have done it, and then go and just do your thing. And you can figure it out.
And having the courage and having the confidence to say, you know what, this isn't working for me, and having the wherewithal to go out and find something that works.
I think this whole conversation that we've just been having it just prompted me to think about there's this recent rise in people wanting to practice meditation and find mindfulness, and then yoga is on the rise, which has a mental health tie-in as well. And it's just curious to me. I'm just more observing at this point. The rise in these things it's definitely there because it's fulfilling some sort of need. There's something missing in the zeitgeist right now, and so these things are trying to come into the fold. Just I don't know where we can go with that comment per se, but
yeah, I guess it's one of those things, is that people introspection has become a big thing in our world, and yoga, as you said, is a big way people can go through meditation, or both very introspective, kind of focusing on the self is a very big thing in fitness and in just society these days.
Yeah, maybe it's a response to like social media, because social media tends to result in that whole FOMO, like comparing yourself to others. That's
Mm-hmm.
just one thought that comes to mind.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's the world that we have created for ourselves, that we're always putting the measuring stick to everything everyone else does, whether it be just your simple money, vacation, status, or in the gym, just saying, oh, well, that person can lift all this weight, can do all this other stuff. And it's really something that you have to be introspective to what your gifts and what your skills are, because what one person may be gifted at, they may suck at another thing that you're really good at. You just don't know.
Yeah, self-awareness. I think we need to have a dedicated podcast on something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm jealous you got into Duke, so I'm putting my foot down on this.
Hey,
Stay confident, Nick.
Yeah.
I'm still surprised as anybody that I got into Duke, man.
Yeah.
It's been a dream of mine since I was small to get into Duke. I mean, I applied in my undergrad. I didn't even get waitlisted. I just got a straight denial there. So saying that I got into there for their physical therapy program, which is one of the top programs in the country, just it blows my mind every day to say that I'm going to be a part of that program.
Were your parents famous actors or actresses? They cut a nice check.
How much did Pops put into into the program?
He put none into the program, and I was,
Where's the Allen wing, Duke?
I wish. Trust
Or
me.
is it just an Allen floorboard?
I'll probably have a floor tile somewhere, but that's probably about it.
One of the bricks.
Yep, exactly. I'll have a brick down to the bottom of something.
Yeah. That's all right. One day at a time, brick by brick, buddy, brick by brick.
Exactly.
All right.
So I think another thing that I'm curious to hear your perspective on is injury prevention. So I'm not sure, where PT comes into play in that, or whether if it's something that's growing, if it's part of your education or whatnot. But we've had some guests on who have a similar background as yours, or at least we're pursuing, what you're pursuing, I guess.
Yeah.
Similar to what they're doing now. And they have different ideas as to what can help prevent injuries, whether it's, ensuring that you have a balanced training program, whether it's just getting stronger overall, and by being a stronger person, you will help prevent injuries, whether it's Dr. Harden told us about, using this rate of perceived exertion so that you're not killing yourself all the time. We just had someone on who was talking about the importance of sleep. So I'm just curious if you have like a philosophy, some tips for people to prevent injuries, because most of our audience is just going to be your average gym goer, works a job, but is trying to stay fit and healthy.
Yeah.
They want to be able to, obviously keep going at it and not hurt something.
Oh, absolutely. And I think it's just kind of my biggest philosophy is know your goals, because your goals will dictate how your workout regimen should be shaped. And I've heard a lot of different theories around it. And my personal opinion is, if you know what you're getting yourself into or what you're trying to achieve, it will help you shape what program you should go, how often you should go, what your exercise regimen should be, because the exercise regimen for a marathon runner is going to be completely different from that of an Olympic lifter. So kind of understanding what you want to do, what your goal is, and especially as your average Joe gym goer, saying, okay, I'm just going in there for wellness. I'm just going in to kind of make sure that I'm healthy, that I maintain a certain body weight, or I want to go run a 5K. Just understanding, okay, this is what my goals are, and going in there with an educated mind of like, these are the types of exercises that I should be doing. This is how often I should be doing them. Helps you structure your program efficiently, know when to rest, know how many days of rest you're supposed to have. know how many rep sets, that kind of thing, of specific exercises.
Yeah. And I would also imagine that what you mentioned earlier would be important, which would be patience. I would,
Absolutely.
I would assume that if you have a patient mindset, that's going to help reduce injury, you reduce your injury risk, I should say, because you're not necessarily trying to get from point A to point B too quickly if you have patience.
Right, exactly. And that's, again, coming back to the idea of knowing what your goals are and then having that patience and that self control to know that it's not going to be a straight line. There are going to be hills and valleys. And when you hit those valleys, to not give up and not kind of throw in the towel and kind of give up, just to kind of push through, because that's how you get better as an athlete. And that's it kind of carries over into life if you know when to keep pushing and not give up through hard times, that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's a balance. You got to keep going, but you also shouldn't just double down, let's say.
Exactly.
Because then I think that's when some people get hurt.
Exactly. It's thinking
And then if you give up, you're never going to make any progress, and you're just going to regress.
Exactly.
What are some of the influences that you've, obviously you're still blazing a trail here, but for yourself, but what have been some of the influences that have gotten you here so far, with physical therapy and with your education?
Yeah, so I'm very lucky to say I've had a lot of very positive influences on my life. Obviously, my parents kind of instilled in me from a young age of kind of the stick to itiveness, kind of stay the course, put all your effort into what you're doing, and it'll pay off no matter what happens in the end. But as far as my education goes, I have a couple of people that kind of influenced me. One of my professors, Dr. Reish, who was taught me exercise physiology. I've done a whole bunch of stuff with her, but she kind of pushed me to kind of think outside the box as far as not follow what is typical and kind of thinking in a manner that kind of addresses all sides of an issue, not just the most popular, the most followed path, as it were. And then kind of out in left field is I've always been a musician, and one of the professors that I personally feel has had the most influence on me is my trumpet professor, Dr. Smith. And it's one of those things is that he kind of instilled in me the kind of stick to itiveness through everything, no matter what happens, and then kind of going through and being patient with a lot of things, even if you're not where you want to be in music or in life, in fitness, to kind of stick with it through everything. And yeah, I've been very lucky to have some great influences.
And we'll give you a little bit of a shout out here with your music stuff.
Sure.
You started an organization. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So while I've got my degree for exercise science, I was also a musician in symphonic band and our pep band and that. And I started a music organization called Musical Empowerment, which helped give free music lessons and instruments to at-need students in the community, it was an incredible experience.
Nice. And you get some recognition for that, huh?
Yeah, I'm very thankful that we got on TV, I think 2 or 3 times. We had some articles written about us. We've been very, very well received, and the community has been very, very supportive of our program thus far. I mean, it's a national organization. I mean, we're one of 6 chapters, as it were. So us at High Point, NC State, UNC, which is the big UNC, Chapel Hill, Tar Heels, Wake Forest, ECU, and Dartmouth are all the chapters. So it's something that's going national, which is really, really cool.
It just happens to be in all the Carolinas.
And Dartmouth. Don't forget Dartmouth.
Okay, Dartmouth, but yeah, just all the Carolinas.
Well, I'm working on it. I got some New England and New York roots. I'm working on it.
Well, that's good. One last question about physical therapy, and I guess just kind of summarizing what you're going to be learning here, and you might not even have gotten to it yet, but what is your favorite part of, like what part of physical therapy do you enjoy the most?
So the biggest thing, and that's something that Duke focuses on very much, is the whole teamwork side of things. And that's the direction that medicine as a whole is moving towards, is a whole collaborative care. So your primary care doesn't work in a vacuum against your physical therapist, that they work in collaboration to kind of give you holistic care. And that's something that Duke's kind of embracing and working towards, and that a lot of their class structure is team based, in as much that I'm going to get there in August, at the middle of August, and I'm going to be putting a team that I'll have for the next 3 years, and I'm going to be collaborating with them on work, on tests, on all sorts of things, because that's how it's going to be in the medical field. And that's something that really excites me, because I think it's something that's very beneficial, and I think that's something that's very needed in healthcare, is this collaborative effort to make sure you get the best care possible as a patient.
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. I've always kind of appreciated let's call it the alternative medicines that try to be focusing on more of a holistic approach. So it'd be great if the conventional medicine did the same.
Yeah, I'm really excited for it. And one of the new things, new is like, this is the first time that Duke's doing it with our class, is specializing so that you'll have PTs that focus on a very specific population. So specifically heart surgery patients, specifically geriatric, pediatric, working with athletes, that you get to work within the specific concentration while you're at PT school to kind of help you kind of narrow down your goals as a PT.
That's pretty
Awesome.
dope.
And I know Nick said that was his last question, but I got another one. This one, it's kind of open-ended, but I was curious what you found that might work for you. As an exercise science major and as a former athlete, I'm guessing you still stay in pretty good shape. So
Yeah.
As far as like exercise programs or styles of training, styles of lifting, diets, tools, philosophies, just be curious if one or two things that's really worked for you that our listeners might try for themselves, see if it works for them, because that's what we do a lot here.
Okay. Well, yeah, my biggest philosophy is, this is a quote that I love, is: a journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step of just not being kind of scared off by fitness and exercise, because some people are. It's a huge kind of field focus, but being able to just start small, start where you're at, because anybody can get into fitness. You could be an 8-year-old, you can be an 85-year-old, and you can still get into fitness. You can still get into lifting. You can still go after your dreams and your goals as a human being through fitness. And I think that's something that I really reverberates with me. And it's something that I will always carry with me, is kind of encouraging people to, even if it's a small step is a step, and it kind of gets you in the direction, gets you going. And once you start going, who knows where you can go. Whatever your goals are, go run a 5K, go do a lifting competition, become a star quarterback, or become a active senior. It's one of those things, is that I'm just super excited to be able to give that gift to people, is through PT, is being able to encourage people to go out there and achieve what they want to achieve, and kind of be there and support and kind of maintaining wellness, helping them recover from injuries and that. So yeah, that's something that philosophy I really reverberates with me.
That was great. Yeah, I agree completely. And it made me think of a couple things. So, the first is that I think a lot of people will compare themselves to others.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's important for people that are getting started to just compare yourself to yourself.
Exactly.
Stay consistent, and you'll notice the steady progress that you're making.
Exactly.
Forget kind of the outside noise. And then as far as you can start at any time, it was on Twitter just a couple of days ago, I saw a post from an elderly woman. She was at least in her 60s, and she said that she had just started lifting weights for the first time a couple of years ago, and is now going to be competing in, I believe, a powerlifting event coming up. And so, like, now a couple of years later, she's made all this progress, and she's a badass. But she didn't start until her 60s.
Exactly. And it's one of those things is that's just the way our world is that we tend to compare ourselves to people, and just having that confidence and saying, you know what, I'm me. I know what I need to do. I don't need to compare myself. I don't need to listen to what everyone else has done. I need to do what I can do. I think that kind of takes a weight off of you, just knowing you don't have to conform to what society says I need to be, and just kind of progress yourself as you need. And then, yeah,
Yeah.
I just saw last week that there's 100-year-old woman that won like the world octogenarian like Olympics and like 40-yard dash. So like 100-year-old ladies out there running, which is just nuts to think about, that these people are century old and out there running. But like it's just so inspiring. Makes you want to go out and try and be better.
I want to be 100-year-old woman running out there too. Oh man!
In our modern day society, that's very possible.
You know what? That could be. Maybe at 99,
you might be able to compete.
I'm gonna switch it up. Yeah. Anyways,
Yeah.
All right. So wrapping this up, we have some shotgun questions for you.
Sure.
Okay. We ask these of all our guests.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah, no problem.
Yeah. So first question is, what is your favorite cheat meal?
My favorite cheat meal, it have to be mac and cheese, or not like Kraft, but like legit mac and cheese you put in the oven with graham or the crackers on top. That's a perfect one.
Oh wow!
Now I know why you moved down to the South.
Yeah, you got to be careful down there. The food's too.
Yeah. Oh well, come back to Buffalo, bud.
Hey, I rep my wings wherever I go. You know.
Uh-huh. All right. Next question. Though, hey, I will say that is probably the second or third most unique answer we've had so far. So
yeah, at least you didn't say pizza.
Yeah.
What's the first? I dare ask.
Pizza
bite. Pizza's running away with this.
Yeah, it's really not even close. So you definitely brought a different, unique answer to it. All right. Second question. Favorite exercise movement?
Favorite exercise movement? Oof. I'm a fan of the deadlift. That's one of those full body exercises that I always love to do.
I knew I could count on you. Yeah, mine's the deadlift as well.
There you go. I'm all about those.
Do you have a favorite variation of the deadlift? You like the traditional?
I'm a traditional
standard deadlift, or you want a Romanian or
sumo?
Yeah.
I dabble a little bit with Romanian, mostly traditional, but yeah, the deadlift, that multi-joint full body exercise, those are the exercises I love the most.
Compound movements.
Amen to that, brother.
All right. If you could change one thing about, well, I guess you really don't have a career in fitness or in physical therapy quite yet. Let's see. If you could have changed anything about your athletic career, what would it have been?
Oof. That's a great question. Maybe would have tried out lacrosse. I feel like I would have done at least semi-decently as like a defenseman or something like that. But
I was going to say, you could have been a goalie.
Could have been a goalie too, yeah. I got a stout enough body. I could have filled up goal.
Yeah.
I resonate with that answer. I feel like I could have been a decent lacrosse player, but I didn't even know about it until high school.
I agree. And even then, we tried to start a team and it just never worked out. But I had my lacrosse stick and everything when I was younger. We used to play when the band, I remember the Bandits games, but I mean, I used to mess around in the backyard and just, do all these weird tricks and stuff.
Maybe I could have got a scholarship to UNC.
Yeah.
Yeah, the lacrosse.
You definitely didn't want to go to the Duke lacrosse team back in the day. So.
Oh, geez.
I'll have you know, High Point knocked off Duke in men's lacrosse this year.
What?
They knocked off Virginia too.
There must have been some kind of trickery.
They were. I mean, the men's and women's lacrosse team at High Point, they were top 15 for the rankings in that. They were no joke.
Well, good for them, but you're not there anymore. So
that's exactly. I can root for my alma mater.
That's right.
They're no good at basketball, so you got to be good at something.
There you go.
We got Tubby Smith, but that's about it.
Mm-hmm. What is next for Josh Allen?
So
And it doesn't have to be just physical therapy. It could be, both. It could be anything.
Well, yeah, I'll be starting Duke in the fall, doing PT, and hopefully still keeping up with my music stuff. They definitely want me to stay involved with that. I don't know what facet and what time I have, but yeah, I'd definitely like to stay involved in music in some capacity.
Trumpet away, my friend.
Trumpet away.
It's funny. Was it third or fourth grade? I played the trumpet too when I was a kid, but I did not. It just was not in my. I was too busy playing sports. I was like, nah. So I always give you credit for being able to do both because I did not like playing both.
I was lucky I went to a country school because I can say I'm probably one of the few people to ever march on homecoming full out of formation and go put on my football gear and go play at the game.
Yeah, I was there.
Yeah. Good times.
Good times. All right, last question.
Yeah.
Any pro tips that you wanted to impart upon our audience?
Ooh, in what regard? In just fitness, general fitness?
General fitness, or what you feel like anybody, a Joe Schmo might need to know.
I guess coming back to what I said earlier, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. It doesn't matter if it's a huge life commitment or if it's just a small little thing. Any direction toward maintaining physical fitness will pay off down the long run.
Perfect. Well said, my good man.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Josh.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Thank you to listening to the HeroFit podcast with Nick and Dan.
Thank you to listeing.
Thank you for listening to the HeroFit podcast with Nick and Dan.
Are we going to cut that?
No, we're going to keep it.
We're going with it.
Yeah, you're going to go ahead. You can
go
the rest of it.
Obviously the people who are listening right now, they've made it this far, so they must like the show. So I'd like to make their lives a little bit easier. I would like to encourage them to subscribe. Right now? Yeah. Just, so if you're listening on an app, pull out your phone, subscribe. You're already there. If you're on the website, that's cool. But that's kind of like, you have to come to the website every week to listen to the podcast. Go up to the top menu, click on the Listen Now button. You're going to see a bunch of options. We're on Spotify, we're on iPhone podcast app, we're on Google Play, we're on the Amazon Echo, YouTube, Stitcher, Overcast. Pick one. Open up your smartphone, pick one. Search for HeroFit Podcast. It's 2 words, HeroFit Podcast. Now you see us? Good. And hit the subscribe. Great. Now you don't have to go looking for us every week. We'll ding you when there's a new episode and you can listen.
Every Tuesday at 4 a.m. That's when the episodes drop.
That is. And then you could go on and do your favorite social media platform and do the same thing, except instead of the subscribe button, now it's the follow or like button.
And then share button.
Yes. So then there's the share button. So you could think about, so right now, now that you've done step 1, step 2, step 3 is think about someone in your life who enjoys fitness. You have someone? Good. Hit that share button or copy and paste the URL, whatever you got to do. Open up your favorite messaging app. Now send it to them. Send them our page, our website, an episode, whatever it takes. You're going to make their life better. Like literally their life just improved because you took that step and helped them.
We were lost, but now we have been found.
Yeah, they had a life in which they didn't know we existed, and now they know. Their eyes are open. Their body is already becoming stronger. Their mind is expanding. Their soul is lifting. And you did that. You did that for them. How awesome is that? You're a hero.
You're a HeroFit. Thanks again, Josh.
Thank you.
Josh is like, why did I listen to all that? Should have logged off long ago.
That was some wholesome stuff, guys. That's some wholesome stuff.
Thanks again, buddy. Go Blue Devils.
Go Duke.
Go Heels.
Watch them out.
And horns up. I gotta do both.
Always horns up, man.
Go Bengals. Yep.
All right, we can all agree on horns up at least.
All right, take it easy. Keep it classy.
This has been another episode of the HeroFit Podcast, making humans great again, one podcast at a time.